David Weinberger, thank you very much for taking the time for this interview.
Of course, thank you.
Let's start with talking about new technologies. New technologies such as big data, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, they will change the way we live, the way we work, but also the way we communicate and how we make decisions. And sometimes they promise to make our lives easier and to deliver better insights into complexity. On the other hand, they increase the complexity as technologies. So are they rather part of the problem or part of the solution or both?
Clearly, technology is both problem and solution, at least to some of the problems. But I think there's another thing going on, in addition to all the many problems that these technologies are creating, which are very real and very concerning, of course. I think that the internet over the past 20 years has trained us to accept the chaos around us. So we've gotten used to what is basically the picture of a chaotic universe that chaos theory gave us 40 years ago. A world in which there's an endless amount of details. Those details, a small detail can cause a sudden change throughout an entire system, the butterfly effect, that the laws that govern this chaotic world are they're often non-linear. That is, a law that works for something up to a certain point, suddenly a little bit more, one bit flips, and suddenly that law no longer holds, and something else does. The internet has gotten us used to this, and we prosper and benefit, and we like it, and we voluntarily spend free time on it, chasing down stuff, getting lost in this chaos on purpose because we're learning or we're enjoying.
Does machine learning help us to navigate the chaos, or does it navigate us?
I think machine learning, the type of AI known as machine learning, is giving us a new model for understanding this chaotic world. The way that we've proceeded, I'm going to say for thousands of years, but certainly for hundreds of years, is the world is overwhelming, there's too much to know, it's a very big universe, and so we have thought that the secret is to find the simple laws that govern the way the world works. And clearly we've gotten really, really good at that. I don't mean to knock that pursuit. It's a really important one. I like science, for example. But we find the simple laws. Those laws just happen to be simple enough for us to understand, which I think is a little bit too much of a coincidence, but a handful of laws we can understand. And then we apply these general laws to particulars. And when we do that, we subsume the particulars under general law. We say, now we understand it. Machine learning doesn't work that way. When you're training a machine learning system to, say, make a prediction about your business, you don't do what you do with normal computers, normal programming, which is, you tell it what the factors are that affect your business, number of employees, revenue stuff, and the profits, and you tell it how those factors are connected, and then you run data through it and it gives you an answer. It's basically a spreadsheet. And obviously those work quite well, but machine learning, you wouldn't give it the entities that matter, the factors that matter, and you wouldn't give it especially not give it the relationships among them. Instead, you just give it data and data and data. So in the case of human health, rather than telling it, well, here are the organs, here are the what we call medicines, here are the symptoms and so forth, the stuff that we know, you would very likely, and this has been done, feed in one case, 700,000 patient records, each of which had 500 data points, and it's just numbers. It's just numbers. They didn't say anything at all about, well, these numbers represent the medicines, and these are the symptoms, and these are the outcomes. Just numbers. And the system goes through, the machine learning system goes through, and it makes correlations among thousands, millions of data points, billions of data points. What's the correlation, statistical correlation, and gives it a probability, how strong the correlation is. And it can build these gigantic artificial neural networks. And the point is, when machine learning does this, when it builds these networks, it may well not come up with any generalizations. And yet we know that it works. That's why we're using it. It works better than our way of doing it. And so I think we are being trained by the success of machine learning to think that, well, maybe that's the way the world works. Maybe it is a connection of details. Generalizations are good, are helpful. Physical laws of science seem to be true, but it's a connection of everything to everything else all the time, all at once.
What does it mean when it comes to decisions? Can these machines help us to make better decisions, or do we simply delegate the decisions to these kind of systems?
If you use a GPS mapping thing, as most of us do, you're using AI, of course. It's machine learning. It's incredibly effective. It's drawing routes, and it's doing it in real time in reaction to. But at this point, you are completely free to ignore that advice. And so it's an assist. It's augmenting your directional skills. And you make a decision about how much you want to trust it. Completely reasonable. In the same way, machine learning systems that can look at a biopsy and make a judgment about how likely it is that it's cancerous or what stage of risk it's at, those systems seem to be really pretty accurate. But human pathologists are completely free to say, either to say, oh, really? I didn't let me take another look because I missed that. Or to say, oh man, the AI got it wrong this time. It's still left to humans.
So this means that at the end, if these are important decisions, humans should take the decisions?
Obviously, there's controversy about all of this. For example, we're heading into an age of autonomous vehicles, of robot cars. And I think there's at least a good possibility that fatality rates will drop maximally if humans are taken out of the driving loop. If you put a steering wheel in so humans can grab the wheel in an emergency and twist it, and I think there's pretty good reason to think that humans are going to make more mistakes than the autonomous vehicles will. The autonomous vehicles are likely to be networked at some point. They'll be able to coordinate and say, well, you go left, I'll go right. We'll miss the toddler in the middle of the street or whatever. Their reaction times are better. They have a 360 view of the world. And if they are networked, they are not just 360 from where they are, but they're getting a whole picture of the entire landscape. So I think there's reasons to think that AVs are going to make better decisions than we are. And these are decisions that will at least sometimes be life and death decisions. So I don't think it's the importance of the decision that is going to determine whether or not we want to trust it to the AVs. It's going to be some other set of factors. It will be humans who decide which factors and do we really want to trust the machines.
You came up with the term trust. Isn't trust the main problem that we're touching upon here? Trust in the capability of a machine, trust in the algorithm that we don't understand anymore, trust in the reaction time of a self-driving car. So isn't trust the main issue? And how can we build up trust into algorithms that we don't even understand?
I think by the way that we do with almost everything else, because most of what we use, we have trust that some human could understand, but we don't go back to that human and have that person explain to us exactly how it works. So it's basically trust all the way down.
This increase of complexity and the way we try to deal with it, what effects does it have on the corporate world?
So there's a minimum viable product approach to launching products over the past 15 years or so, in which a company online introduces a product with the fewest possible features. But when you do an MVP like that, you are saying, okay, our job is to do the fewest possible predictions, to predict as little as possible, and to put out the minimum thing. Because when you launch a full-featured product, you are actually limiting its possibilities. And this is a change in how we think about the future. It's not just MVPs. There's many open platforms, open access, open source. Lots and lots of stuff on the internet is based around the same idea, which is let's not anticipate what will happen. Let's put it out there and see what people do. Let's build a gigantic collection of information and see how people use it. Let them filter on the way out rather than us filtering on the way in, because we don't know what people are going to be interested in. Yeah, put it in. It's the internet. Make the biggest collection you possibly can of whatever, of photographs or of products, etc. All of these are ways in which we decide that the way to succeed is to not anticipate the future. After literally tens of thousands of years of succeeding by anticipating what's going to happen and preparing for it, which means narrowing the opportunities and the potential. This is something that businesses are doing. They also do this when they decide to make their products or their services or their data interoperable. That is, something that's designed for one system that can be used by another system, possibly in a way that the first system didn't anticipate.
What are practical steps that you would recommend to businesses to meet the challenges of everyday chaos?
So I think everyday chaos is this huge opportunity. So the title of my book is Everyday Chaos, and I mean that very, very positively. I know that there are tons of problems, really serious problems with AI and the internet. The book is actually quite optimistic. It keeps trying to remind the reader that there is these problems, but that both the internet and the AI are giving us a way that we already inhabit, actually, of addressing the future, rather than always trying to narrow it down to what we want, but instead to see the positive benefit of opening up possibilities, which businesses do. In part, it's a cultural thing where they would have to get used to the idea that they do not, if they control their product, they are not getting maximum value from their product. If you control your product, you are, by definition, excluding the possibility of other uses that add value to it that you did not anticipate. So making your products more open and more interoperable. You can make them more open by, as many companies do, if it's an online product, providing an open API, application programming interface, which allows other developers anywhere in the world to build new services using your services capabilities, integrating your service into other ones. It makes your product an integral part of somebody else's workflow and thus yet more value. Businesses that understand what machine learning is and how it works and what its limitations are, but also what its possibilities are going to be ahead of the curve. We are generating as everybody knows, so much data now. We have sensors everywhere. Every appliance will be a sensor, and medicals and traffic lights, and satellites. We're generating so much data. Getting maximum use from this through AI is really like learning from the world. That's what we want. That's what we should want.
So meeting the challenges of everyday's chaos for businesses means to apply machine learning and to open innovation, to open products, to involve others.
Yes. Be open to the world is very complex. It changes very quickly. Small events can have gigantic rippling effects throughout the entire system. And if you're focused on that 10-year objective, you are likely to miss the small change. And that means, for example, allowing decision-making further down the hierarchy. Corporate hierarchies were invented in the 1860s explicitly. One reason explicitly was to limit the flow of information up to the top, because each of the lieutenants cuts out some of the information, so the decision maker. But that's throwing out information. And that's what we had to do then, but now we don't have to.
What does it mean when we open everything and we delegate to algorithms or to self-learning machines? What does it mean for responsibility?
So if an autonomous vehicle goes out and it's not performing the way that it should, it's not saving lives or it's breaking down or whatever, we already have regulations in place around the world that hold the manufacturer responsible and that require the manufacturer to fix it. The fact that the car maker may not be able to penetrate its own black box of AI does not seem to me to be relevant to the accountability of that manufacturer. Certainly relevant to how they're going to try to fix it. But it doesn't matter if it was black box or it's not black box. If they sent out a killing machine instead of an automobile, they should be and will be held accountable.
Isn't there any kind of need of, let's call it meta-AI? If we have individual learning algorithms that just follow the purpose of an individual company, don't we need an integration on the level of society?
These cars are going to be on the road together. These machine learning systems are optimized. You have to tell it what you want them to do, because you have to measure the success. I mean, you literally have to tell them that, or else the systems can't train themselves. They train themselves to some objective. If we have, let's say, 10 manufacturers of AVs, and each are training it to different optimizations, then we will get at best a suboptimal system, and possibly a quite unfair one. Quick example. So if you're a manufacturer of autonomous vehicles, you're going to have to decide. There's like at least a couple dozen goals for these things are obvious. You could drive down the amount of fuel, the environmental impact, safety, pretty measured in deaths, but there's also safety in terms of personal injury and property damage. You could separate those out if you want. There's comfort, which we sort of take for granted. It's going to be comfortable. There's travel time, and the rest. And it turns out, these are quite likely mutually exclusive. right? So if minimizing deaths is your number one, which let's hope it's going to be for everybody, that's going to possibly have an effect on speed, on quickness to your destination. And you're going to have to make a decision about that. And we're going to have to make a decision. And may well have faster time might mean more environmental impact. There's dozens of these to be considered. But the result is that you have cars that are optimized for different things trying to coordinate, and people die, and poorer people die because they can't afford the cars that are optimized. I want them at least to tell us what the trade-offs are that they're optimizing these things for. I personally would like governments to be able to specify and say, you know what? At this point, environmental impact, okay, it may be, I don't know that it would be, it may be that getting the least environmental impact means that there are more deaths on the road. We may want to make that decision. I don't know, it's not totally wildly implausible that we make, but I want democracies and their governments to make those decisions.
So this means that we do not just need algorithms and AI, we need hierarchies of algorithms and hierarchies of objectives.
So we absolutely need hierarchies of values. We need to be really clear about the values and the trade-offs. I actually think this is one of the benefits that I hope we get from the permeating of machine learning throughout the culture. Because machine learning can be very unfair. It's one of the built-in serious problems. It learns from data, and if the data is representing us humans, the data is very likely to represent human biases. So if you're building a machine learning system to sort through resumes for jobs, and you've given it lots of what you think is relevant data about people and jobs and the like, it's likely to learn that being a woman does not correlate very well with being a senior manager. These systems are profoundly stupid in that sense, right? They're literalists, and it's just the data represents that very sorry and disturbing fact about our culture. If you're not aware of that, you will very likely perpetuate and amplify that bias.
Do you think that in our society we have this agreement on what the objectives are?
No, we do not have that agreement. We've thought that we have. This is one of the things that's both scary and I think a really useful process that is a process of growing up as a species. So we wave our hands and act as if we all agree on what fairness is. And believe me, fairness is really important. That's why I'm taking it as an example. But everybody's in favor of fairness, and it sounds simple. But when you look at the arguments that we have, frequently, it turns out we don't agree about what fairness is. In the U.S., we have arguments over equal opportunity and compensating, and it turns out that we really don't agree about what fairness means, what its values are. It's really healthy, I think, for us to have a language by which we can talk about these differences. And I think machine learning, because it is inevitably based upon trade-offs among goals, it forces us to face this fact about our lives that we tend to gloss over.
So this seems like these new technologies are something as a mirror. We take a closer look at ourselves.
These systems do not think at all like humans, but I think you're exactly right. I think that they force us to look at ourselves, see our world as complex as it is, as unpredictable as it is, and to see our own set of concerns about the world as more complex and in conflict and unresolvable ultimately, which is the precondition for making real progress.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.